Welcome to Energy Careers, a segment of the Energy Conversations podcast dedicated to exploring opportunities in the dynamic world of the energy sector. For 13 years, I've had the privilege of navigating this sector, and it has significantly shaped my professional and entrepreneurial journey. Join me as we uncover exciting pathways for those interested in making their mark in this exciting sector. Let's dive in. Welcome to another installment of the Energy Careers segment, a segment of the Energy Conversations podcast, which highlights opportunities for young people looking to participate in the energy sector by following the journeys of seasoned experts in South Africa's energy sector. In today's episode, we are discovering the energy journeys of Mandy Mlilo, Thabo Molekoa, and Professor Mkhulu Mathe. Mandy, please share your energy journey. How did you get involved in the energy sector? What did you study? And what has been your career path up until this point?
No, thanks a lot once again for this opportunity. And just a quick introduction. Obviously, my name is Mandy Mlilo from the Department of Science and Innovation. I'm the Director, Hydrogen and Energy, under the Hydrogen and Energy Chief Directorate. So my journey, I will just be very brief. I studied chemical engineer, so I'm a chemical engineer by profession. I worked in various sectors in nuclear, and my latest before government, I was a test engineer for the pebble bed modular reactor. And then I worked even at Mintech. I did my internship at Mintech straight from tertiary. I was exposed to a mineral processing division, and then I worked mostly also as well in the pyrometallurgy division of Mintech. And then from there, and then I went to obviously pebble bed modular reactor, and then from pebble bed modular reactor, then I transitioned towards a consultancy firm where I was working in a waste to energy consultancy firm. So we're working in partnerships with different municipalities trying to come up with their energy solutions that they can implement for their respective businesses. So it's then after, I think for me, once exposed to municipalities, working in really closely with municipalities, I felt the need that, I think now it's about time for me to transition to government, where I think more as a public servant will be servicing the needs of the people. And then I applied for a job, obviously, in the government Department of Science and Innovation. And then I got the job, and I was working firstly in the first 5 years. I was working closely within the policy space of the nuclear policy space, where we are providing inputs and providing the necessary policy-related nuclear inputs into the strategic documents and policy documents that that government wanted to embark on when it comes to the position of government that is taking in the nuclear space. And then obviously then I saw an opportunity in the hydrogen and energy space, and then I applied for a job, and then I got the job within the Hydrogen and Energy Chief Directorate. So until a point where I was appointed as a director, because I came in as an assistant director, and then through the promotions, and I managed to get to where I am as a director. But I think at the core is my appreciation, and I think I loved maths and science even from the school level. I was very much a maths fundi, a science fundi. So that's why I then transitioned, and then I went into the chemical engineering space until I got to where I am. But thanks a lot.
Thank you very much for that. Such a beautiful story about taking the opportunities that are presented to you with both hands, and riding it all to the top. So a very beautiful journey, and really truly inspiring. I'm not sure about maths and science, but that wasn't all of us. I think I was always destined to be a lawyer. I'd like to then hear from Thabo. Please, could you share your energy journey? How did you get involved in the energy sector? What did you study? And what has been your career path up until this point?
Yeah, thank you. So Thabo Molekoa from Siemens Energy. I'll explain a bit later how I landed where I am and what led to that. So I studied mechanical engineering. So often we think, they say we think differently. I'm not so sure about that one. But later in life, then I ended up with an MBA for business to get more into the business side. But career-wise, after in mechanical engineering at UCT, I had a bursary from DBS, and out of that, I started in a mining sector. So our experience at the time as young engineers, it was around usage of technology, maintaining equipment, servicing equipment, and also introducing new equipment. So if we're expanding a particular mine, you would increase the substations and buy new equipment and so on. So I spent some time, and that was my life for several years there. I wanted to broaden my experience with regards to equipment maintainability and that sort of thing. So I then moved into consulting, which I did for about 8 years. The attraction here was not only the content of the work that I did, but also the geography. So I was focused on doing similar thing for a lot of operations, so be it mining, manufacturing, but across Africa. So I covered something like I've done business in over 40% of African countries. So sometimes it will be a remote mine in the West Africa where they're struggling to improve the efficiencies, or they're struggling to improve the maintainability of their equipment. So then we'll talk about strategies, and then there'll be some practical aspects that I dealt with the engineer. So it was pretty much content focused there, and it was pretty much subject matter expert and so on. So that's the bulk of, in fact, most of the mines around in the platinum side in South Africa as well, developed a lot of their maintenance programs and so on. So it was quite an interesting time and quite an interesting period, because it brought a lot of diversity of problems, tomorrow in a different sector and so on. But then afterwards, you start to realize that there's the yearning question around global, right? So then when I started to shift, I wanted a bit of to play on a more global scale, so beyond the African context, but at the same time to ask ourselves whether, how do we compare globally? Huh? And my conclusion is that actually we in some areas we punch way above. So it's just that sometimes we don't talk about it quite a lot. So in that year, I then ended up joining DuPont. So I was first the regional director for one of the businesses in DuPont, looking after sub-Saharan Africa, and then reporting in Geneva at the time, in Europe. And then after DuPont, then I became CEO for sub-Saharan Africa again at ThyssenKrupp. So this was more, in fact, multiple technologies from mining to steel and even Navy. So some of the submarines that you see and so on, that was the interesting technologies or elevators that we had at the time. And I think that space for me, one, gave the reassurance that, yes, you could be also educated in South Africa or on the continent, but also be globally relevant and competitive on a global scale. And I think that was reassuring, because your colleagues are across the world, you interact, you collaborate, and in some cases you lead certain interventions and initiatives with a diversity of people. And I think that's quite important to also reassure others that do not take your education locally for granted. It actually is quite world-class to some extent. And then I think during COVID, Siemens at the time, what they were carving out their energy business. And that's when we started discussing how I can come and run the energy business. And then during 2020, when it carved out, then I ended up running this business itself. And I think the attraction here is, although you have this global landscape and global outlook, because you are based here and you then are able to utilize the technologies, the availability of content on skills and training people, we were able to put up the Power Academy, which used to be in Europe all the time. You have to travel to Europe, so we brought it down here. because we could see that it also is relevant for South Africa and so on. And I think that's the space that I see. And then in terms of motivation, I think to specifically pick the energy space, it was also through Prof. Khadebe at some point saying, look, we need more hands on the energy landscape. And then I thought perhaps I take what I know quite commonly, which is the technology part, and then use that as a vehicle within Siemens Energy to support South Africa's growth trajectory and aspirations.
Thank you very much for that, Thabo. And I like how you've also demonstrated or shown the ability to pivot into the sector, and you can do so later in life, leveraging the expertise that you've gained in another industry. Because I think when we think about energy, we always think of it as if it's in this closed off corner, but the reality is energy touches every single area of society. Energy is what drives our economy. So wherever you're at, even, you know, not even just as a young person still starting their career, you can already be a seasoned professional in whatever space you are currently, but you are able to still pivot or participate if the sector is of interest to you. Thank you very much for that perspective. And then lastly, Prof, what has your journey been? How did you get involved in the energy sector? What did you study, and what has been your career path up until this point?
Thanks a lot, Togo. I studied BSc in chemistry and mathematics, and then did a master's, and then did a PhD in electroanalytical chemistry. And maybe I would talk to the time I did master's. I worked on water defluoridation. And so that's when one started to be aware of the need to have solutions, because it was emanating from a problem of dental caries that we see as brown teeth. So it was due to too much fluoride in the water system. And we used an abundant resource, which is fly ash, to see how it can be used for that. And I would say even up to today, the opportunity of using fly ash for different solutions remains immense. Then when I did my PhD, I worked on nanostructured materials for atomic layer deposition of semiconductor materials. And it was during that time when I did electrodeposition of mercury, which my professor at the time had said it's something that has never been done in 28 years, which led to us as his laboratory at the University of Georgia working with IBM and Intel. So the choice to come to South Africa was between staying in the US and working for Intel or IBM. But having started as a teacher before, I felt that I was more needed in South Africa than I would have made impact in the US. And so I came back and landed at the CSIR, where I joined a group of energy and processes, which was an interesting group because it had process engineers, electrical, mechanical, polymers, and all. And then we came in as material scientists. And then we are the people that are saying, what is the science behind the engineering? Why is this thing not working? And so at that time, I was given the responsibility of starting a fuel cell group. And then working on the fuel cell, we had to work on different elements. But as we're working on different elements, one has to transition towards application to say, what products are you going to have? And then it is around that time that I had a opportunity to be with Vets Business School, where I did my management advanced program, and then subsequent to that, went to do executive development program with the current Minister of Electricity, and then finally at UCT doing financing for renewable energy projects. So my career balances between your basic science, your applied science, developing other future workforce in terms of having a diverse career, to say, okay, you can be in the laboratory, but beyond the laboratory, what becomes your growth plan? And so I stayed 17 years at CSIR, finally becoming a chief researcher. And once I became a chief researcher, one had been engaged and interacting with different entities. I then got involved with the Sondo Precious Metal groups, and then other groups that are working on products and all. And then a conversation started with the College of Science, Engineering and Technology, also around 2020. And then in 2021, I was invited to join the college, but to spearhead the Institute for Catalysis and Energy Solutions. And in the Institute for Catalysis and Energy Solutions, it was consolidation of Catalysis Group, which is having a strong tradition of Fischer-Tropsch of Sasol, but also going to your energy solutions to say, how do you have complementarity between catalysis and energy solutions? Because you can do all the catalysts, and I like what Thabo said about recycling. We also are looking at recycling of catalysts. And in the energy solution, one is introducing batteries and supercapacitors, because lately one reflects on a fundamental key question. All over the world, the struggle is to get energy access, which is affordable, sustainable, and clean. And one has to battle with the reality that in Africa, people don't have access to electricity. Electricity is becoming expensive. So the life mission, therefore, is how do you contribute to getting more people access, but how is it going to be made affordable? And more importantly, how do you contribute to job creation by working on formalizing this informal circular economy? Because when we are looking at recycling, we have to say, with good policies, good strategies, good vision, we should start to make indents. And localization, as Thabo has said, is something that we have to do. And I believe the beauty of one's career has been to understand the importance of training more people, but also I normally say I train the lions, because the lion is that animal that is feared. And so I want the people that we are training to have that bravery of we can and we are going to solve solutions. Well, I had to take highlights, and I think for those that would consider the careers in science, love mathematics, love physical science, and in the words of my mathematics professor, Przybylski, he came to the class on the first day and wrote 2 words: think simple. And from that on, mathematics was never difficult for me. The only problem was that when you get 98%, they say you don't know how to write your surname. That's why you get 98% and not 100%. So I would say think simple and enjoy what you're doing. Thanks a lot, colleague.
Thank you very much, Prof. I really wish that perhaps back in the day, somebody had also walked into my math class and wrote, think simple. My life might be a bit different, but thank you so much for sharing of your journey. And I think you've also highlighted the importance of whatever your journey or whatever it is that you're doing, crafting an overarching life mission. What is it that you want to achieve? What impact do you want to make? And everything that you end up doing will then kind of fall within that line. It reminds me of my personal mission statement has always been, to play a meaningful role in the industrialization and the development of the African continent. So whether, you're doing a specific job in this sector or in this industry. So everything that I've been able to do working across the energy value chain, and even at times outside the energy value chain, has always boiled down to, does it tick this box? So if I'm on a podcast, does it still speak to development and industrialization on the continent? If I'm in a boardroom, or if I'm negotiating an agreement, does it still speak to that? And then I think you find some kind of peace and equilibrium in yourself, and like you say, you enjoy the journey, you enjoy it. I think whatever it is that we choose to do with our lives, may we ensure that we are at least enjoying it. And that brings us to the end of this installment of the Energy Careers, a segment of the Energy Conversations podcast. I'd like to once again thank our guests for sharing. Thank you very much for sharing your journey. And to our listeners, please be sure to tune into the next segment. Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning into Energy Careers, where we explore the endless possibilities in the energy sector. Don't miss out on future episodes where we'll feature more inspiring journeys and insights on how to embark on your own energy career path. Subscribe now to the Energy Conversations podcast and unlock the door to exciting opportunities in the dynamic world of energy. Your journey begins here.